Hey y'all, it's Shane the Creative and welcome to my video. As you can probably tell from the title and or thumbnail, we're going to be talking about The Long Walk. And in specific, we're going to be discussing and analyzing the character Gary Barkovitch and answering the question of if he's the villain or victim of the story. Now, if this is your first time here, hi, hello, I'm Shane. This is where I like to run my mouth about what I want, including but not limited to movies, TV shows, social issues, pop culture, and more. So if you think that might interest you, consider checking out some of my other videos on my channel. I also have another video, a part of my Victim or Villain series, aka the first video of the series, which features the character Rick Murray from Degrassi The Next Generation. The link for that will be in the description if you're interested. Now, before we get into this video, let's get through a few disclaimers. First, this video is purely for fun and entertainment purposes and based around my opinion/personal analysis. If you're watching this video, it's safe to assume you've seen The Long Walk already, but just to be considerate, spoiler warnings going from this point on forward, as I will be discussing key points of the film. And content/trigger warning, this video will contain some clips of the film and discussions of topics revolving around death, gore, and gun violence. So just a heads up before we continue, viewer discretion is advised. Now, since we got all of that out the way, let's finally get into this video. The Long Walk, a film based on the Stephen King novel that I will not be referencing at any point in this video, is about 50 young men participating in a live televised competition where they must continuously walk above a certain pace non-stop. If they drop below that pace, they get a max of 3 warnings, spaced 10 seconds apart from each other, to get back up to pace, or else they'll be given their ticket, aka shot down with the rifle. And the walking must continue until there's only one boy left. The walk consists of an interesting bunch of boys, most of whom I absolutely adore. But there is one in specific whose character just truly intrigued me, and that character is in fact Gary Barkovitch. Let me tell y'all, not too many characters can start off having me sympathize with them, then go on to dislike them, to then full disdain, then right back to sympathizing with them by the end of their screen time. And for that reason, I feel like Barkovitch would be the perfect character to do my next victim or villain analysis on. So here we are. We're first introduced to Gary Barkovitch at the start of The Long Walk, while the boys are waiting around for the Major's arrival. This scene is the first time we see all our core boys together and their first interactions with each other, and this is where their dynamics between each other start to form. The boys are chatting, introducing themselves, and just start shooting the shit with each other. Bark tries to join in on the banter, only to be met with awkward silence and Olsen asking him,
"The fuck is a Mima?"
Fuck you, I was just fucking around.
Now, this little awkward moment is the starting point of the divide between him and the rest of the boys. That feeling of being rejected for being too different, which I'm sure he's no stranger to, is one of the main reasons why I believe Bark starts to view the boys as opponents and enemies rather than just continue to try to look for friendship and solace amongst them, which will lead to his upcoming antagonistic behavior. It must be noted though that the boys seemingly had no ill will nor hostility towards Bark at this point. Also, quick pause, I'm going to attempt to refer to Bark as only Bark to make it easy on both me and the listeners, but I'm obsessed with the way Pete says Barkovitch.
Barkovitch.
So subconsciously my mind and my mouth be ready to imitate Barkovitch every time I'm about to say Bark. So please bear with me if I have any slip-ups. Now, as I was saying, we see within the movie that the boys give each other shit often throughout the walk, oftentimes stemming from a place of love or just lighthearted jokes and fun. That just seems to be their way of showcasing affection and care at times. Don't get me wrong, Olsen definitely sounded like an asshole, but it wasn't meant to be out of genuine malice, in my opinion. There's another instance after Bark used up his first 3 warnings to tie his shoelaces and the boys give him shit about it and Bark has a little mini fit. But a minute before that, they were just rushing him to hurry up to avoid being executed. showcasing again that the boys don't genuinely wish any true ill will on Bark, despite him being competition at the end of the day. And him getting his ticket would mean a greater chance of them both saving their own life and winning the long walk. It's actually a reoccurring thing I noticed throughout the movie that these boys still help each other throughout the walk, some more than others of course, but no one ever tried to play a dirty game, even though they easily could have found ways to sabotage the other boys to get them their ticket to better their own chances. Like, they might not all like each other, but they're still all in on this contest together, like a sense of unity. Maybe with the exception of Barkovitch himself, but even then I believe it was more so of the case of Bark locking in on the competition and just being desensitized to death, rather than Bark actually getting joy out of these boys dying. But I'll get into that more later. But yeah, it was really just a beautiful thing to realize with each watch how none of these boys actively wanted any of their competitors to lose, even though the circumstances would completely warrant that. It shows a level of human decency and compassion still within them, even in such a dire situation. Now back to the original discussion at hand. Up to this point, we see the boys interacting more and forming bonds with each other. This is when we get into another defining point in Bark's story, which is rank. About 25 miles in, we see Bark attempting to engage in conversation with Rank, asking him if his name is short for anything. After Rank confirms that his name is simply Rank, Bark begins to tease him about it. His constant teasing leads to poor Rank taking some swings out at him and missing. Bark then continues his teasing with more sexist and derogatory comments about Rank's mother, while the other boys like Collie and Pete tell off Bark and encourage Rank to just ignore him. Unfortunately, Rank attempts another big swing after Bark continued to take it too far, and this time his miss causes him to fall face first into the pavement. We then see Bark's tone completely switch. He starts yelling, "Get the fuck up! Hey!" But sadly, Rank ends up getting his ticket. The other boys scold and blame Bark for Rank's death, and we see how strong of an emotional reaction that evokes out of Bark. And we'll see it again throughout the rest of the movie how much of a toll it takes on him. Now, like I said, Rank's death is a pivotal moment in Bark's story because I believe that his death is the key component behind Bark's psyche basically deteriorating. Later on in the movie, we'll see most of the boys becoming ill and succumbing to their conditions of their bodies, internally and or externally, caused by the effects of walking non-stop. But not Bark though. Pete neither, but that's just because my man is built different. But anyways, up to Bark's final moments, we see that physically he's in better shape than most of the other boys, but mentally he was in complete torment. After Rank's death, we see Bark isolating himself and seemingly pitting a taller and wider wall up between him and the rest of the boys. He doesn't even try engaging with them anymore like he did earlier on in the film. The only time he does go out his way to speak to them is just to antagonize / taunt them, especially Ray and Pete, which I believe to be mostly rooted in envy. Envy and close relationship they form with each other, especially considering how we'll later see in the film that Bark has just been longing for some sense of friendship or connection on the walk. But again, we'll put a pin in that for a little later. But the taunting usually backfires on Bark because the second he tries to mess with the other boys, all they have to do is call him a killer in return.
Why don't you kiss my ass, killer?
Hey, don't fucking say that shit, man. You're fucking wrong to say that, man. I'm not fucking wrong. You're fucking wrong.
And he gets reminded of that guilt that's eating away at him, which just makes him even more enraged and spiteful towards the other boys. As the walk continues, we see how disassociated Bark is, not just from the boys, but from death and the walk in general. There's multiple instances of him mocking and making light out of these boys that's being killed right in front of him. Like saying how one boy being gunned down after trying to escape the walk was just the thing that he needed to wake him up, and skipping over the body of another boy while he's on the ground having a seizure. I don't believe that all that was done because of Bark being just some evil monster. I believe it's partially because of how he viewed the long walk as a game, as any old competition with the grand prize. That paired with him already being desensitized to death and forming no connection with the other boys and being ostracized by them just made it easier to view them as nothing more than just competitors. The only death that Bark was actually affected by was Rank's, and that's because he had a direct hand in his death happening to begin with. There's no way for him to disassociate from what happened with Rank, hence the emotionally distressed response Bark showcases any and every time one of the boys mention his role in Rank's death. And this one thing was enough to build up the guilt that will ultimately contribute to his tragic ending. After Olsen's death, Pete asked the remaining boys left to be in on the pact that whoever wins the long walk will do something nice for Olsen's wife with the winnings.
Fucking come on, Parker. Come on. I know you got a heart in there somewhere.
He asked all of the boys except for Bark. Already feeling excluded from the boys from the jump, Bark not being included in on the pact amongst the 5 other boys left was a clear confirmation that he's in fact the odd man out, the outsider from the rest. Hell, even Stebbins, someone else who's actively been a lone wolf in the competition, who's also consistently butted heads with the rest of the boys, got included in on the pact. That, combined with the mental and emotional unrest Bark has been going throughout the walk, finally takes a toll on him, and this is the first time we see Bark letting his guard down and being vulnerable. He reaches out to Ray and apologizes for Rank and how his death keeps replaying itself in his head, the guilt becoming too much to bear, and basically lets Ray know that he wants to be a part of not only the pact for Olsen's wife, but to also be a part of the group too. Then Bark mentions his father and how he used to say how a guy gotta have a couple of buddies, showing how after all these miles and days of constant insulting, taunting, and attacking the other boys, that even now he still wants nothing more than just to have a friend by his side, to be included. Ray, who recognizes how unstable and fragile Bark's state is in that moment, tries to appease to him and lets him know that he'll talk to his man Pete about him joining the group. The moment Ray does go off to talk to Pete, we see Bark instantly becoming anxious and on edge again, seemingly fearing the rejection that he was expecting from Pete. That's when Bark makes his final statement about how he's going to be with the boys forever, right before he attempts to take his own life. Now, I believe that he did this for exactly the reason he stated, to stay with the boys forever. Let me explain. From the very beginning, when we're first introduced to the boys, we see Bark amongst the group, chiming in to joke alongside, to join in, only to be met with feeling ostracized. Then going back to what I mentioned earlier, his homophobic hostility towards both Ray and Pete was fueled on by jealousy and the fact that they formed such a close friendship that he had to be a bystander to for like 4 days straight. He envied them for having exactly what he wanted, a genuine friend to journey throughout the walk with by his side. Someone that helped you get through such a fucked up thing such as the long walk. Just like his daddy said.
Guys gotta have a couple buddies, man. That's what my daddy always used to say.
All this boy wanted from the get-go was to feel like he belonged, a sense of support and community amongst the other boys. So the second he got confirmation of being included in by Ray, that's when we finally see him at ease. Pleased even. So then the second Ray went to talk to Pete, Bark was already expecting to get shut down and shunned yet again. Hence him lashing out at Pete when Pete tried asking if he was okay.
The fuck did you just say? The fuck did you just say, man?
It's gonna be
I
fucking
didn't fucking
good.
mean to kill that kid, man. I didn't fucking mean it, okay?
Okay.
I'm fucking sorry, man.
Yeah.
Fuck!
So to beat Pete to the punch, Bark's solution to solidifying his spot in the group was to make sure that this moment of him being accepted in by Ray would be his last moment. That fulfillment of finally belonging, even if it was just for a few measly minutes, was enough for him to want to hold on to that last moment for eternity. It's like he had finally become at peace. So to answer Pete's question,
How did he do that? Oh my God. How the fuck did he do that? Fuck.
that is why he done did it. Alongside the mental, emotional, and physical exhaustion and the guilt of Frank's death finally wearing him down completely to the point that finally just being included in with the other boys was enough for him to finally let go. Now to answer the real question at hand, the question that prompted this video, is Barkovitch a victim or a villain? Let me start off with stating this, that every boy a part of the Long Walk is a victim. They're victims of a society that's exploiting their lives as they broadcast their suffering and killings on live television in the name of motivating people to not be lazy. They're victims of a system that keeps people in poverty and feed them a false sense of freedom and financial stability in exchange for their lives. And even in Bark's case in specific, He was a socially awkward outcast with, I think it's safe to assume, pre-existing mental illnesses, emotional instability, and unresolved trauma whose defense to feeling left out was to lash out. He couldn't join them, so he had to beat them, hence him constantly trying to antagonize and play mind games with the other boys. The weight of the walk and all his other pre-existing issues finally caught up with him, which is something we see amongst the other boys as well. Before their tragic deaths, we see that moment where each of our boys finally crack. That moment where they lose themselves, or that moment where they come to terms with their fate and just fully accept it. Falling victim to the lone walk, making Bark a victim as well.
I mean, guys gotta have a couple of buddies on a fucked up thing like this, right?
If you made it here to the end of the video, I highly appreciate you and I hope you enjoyed. If you did, consider giving this video a like, subscribing, or checking out some of my other videos. And feel free to comment. Let me know if you agree or disagree or just any commentary you might have. I love to chat, especially about this movie, so let's discuss in the comments. But on that note, thanks again, and I hope y'all have a great week. Peace.